Hi, I'm Rob Shaver, the discipleship minister for the Grace Chapel Church of Christ, and I'm really excited. We're in day 3 of a 21-day time of prayer and fasting. What I wanted to do in this video is share a couple of insights of how we can use that time of prayer and fasting to hit multiple different levels of obeying both the greatest commands and the Great Commission. Now, I've been working a lot with small groups since I've been at Grace Chapel, and we've been using the words of and the ideas of the greatest commands and the Great Commission and putting language to it: upward, inward, outward, forward. That can be an easy way to understand the Great Commands and the Great Commission, but what does that look like in very practical terms? And so that's why this 21 days of prayer and fasting is exciting to me, because as we've talked about upward, inward, outward, forward, this is a very easy way to say, okay, here's one thing that we're doing as a church, and it applies to all 4 facets of small group life. All right, so upward and inward, probably the most obvious. All right, so upward, you're spending more time in prayer, you're spending more time connecting with God, listening to God, petitioning God, and so hopefully that will be a built-in fruit that comes from your 21 days of prayer and fasting, is that you're going to feel closer to God, you're going to fall more in love with God over the course of these 3 weeks, right? And that's purposeful. That should be one of your goals that you have in praying and fasting for 21 days, is that you are closer to the Lord when this is done and through the process. But secondly, our growing in our love for our neighbors and one another is that as we journey through this, we're not doing it alone, right? We're doing it as a church. And you've been given, if you're in a small group, you've got 5 or 6 or 10 or 12 other adults that you're walking along with. You could ask all of them, or you could just petition 1 or 2 people and say, hey, what can I be praying for you about? Or can you pray, as you pray a little extra over the next 3 weeks, here's some things that you can be praying for me. And so as we pray with each other, and as we pray for one another, and as we ask for prayers, those are all things that are going to endear us to one another and grow in our love for our neighbors. What about outward and forward? The foundation and the actual content of the prayers that we're requesting people to pray: Luke 10:2 to pray for workers for the harvest field, and Colossians 4:2-4 is to pray for open doors and opportunities for the gospel to be proclaimed. Those in and of themselves, those prayers, have a very clear outward momentum. But if you want to go deeper, there's a couple of ways that you could use these prayers as an excuse or maybe an opportunity to be outward in your lifestyle and in your content and your conversations, right? So you could go up to somebody that is a friend or an acquaintance, just somebody that's not in the church at all, right? Somebody that you would maybe potentially want to make a disciple of, and have that relationship with in the future, and say, hey, I'm spending extra time in prayer the next 3 weeks, and then just say, is there something that I can pray for you about? Right? So as simple as that, is asking people if they have prayer requests, is a great, just very small step towards going out and making disciples, right? Or if you've had some of those conversations with somebody, then you can be praying specifically for them, and maybe that eventually gets you to the point where you're ready to invite them into something else, something deeper. Lastly, the forward momentum is just the idea of multiplication, right? And so how could we take this effort of prayer and fasting and multiply it? So that can happen within the church, right? If you just find one person that isn't praying and fasting in these 21 days, see if they'll do that with you, right? And so that doesn't even have to be the whole 21 days. Maybe they'll do 3 days with you or 7 days with you. And so you're taking that 3 days or that 7 days or that 18 days we have left, and you're taking whatever your own effort would be, and if you can get somebody to journey with you, you're multiplying it just by 2. So this could happen not just within the church, but it could happen in connecting with other local churches. Hey, we're doing this as a church. Do you think people in your church would want to do that? Or people in churches in different parts of the country or the world, right? So imagine that kind of multiplying effect and having a forward momentum with our prayer and fasting at Grace Chapel. If next year we prayed and fasted not just at Grace Chapel, but several churches in and around Cumming, Georgia, were praying and fasting together. Or several churches in Cumming, Georgia, and several churches around the U.S. or around the world were praying and fasting at the same time and for the same things. That's the kind of multiplying effect that we can have if we have that kind of intentionality in what we're doing. So just one way to understand one thing that we're doing as a church and how it can grow us in our relationship with God, in our relationship with each other, how it can spur us on to make disciples, and how we can use that as a multiplying effort to reach other people and to multiply the kingdom impact that we have in our lives. So definitely small group leaders can use this. You can use it for the time of prayer and fasting within your own group, multiply your effort in your group, but also use this as an example of how you might see a lot of different things that you were doing, maybe just a Bible study or a time of prayer or a time of fellowship, and say like, just challenge yourself. Okay, how could fellowship bring us closer to God and to each other? And how can our fellowship be outward and forward? Or how could our Bible study be outward and forward? And so these are just examples I'm going to be sharing with you of how simple things can move in all four directions so that you can be breathing that more into the life, your own personal life and the life of your group.